Okay, so we have marked the hammers, we've set how we want the action to shift. We've needled a little bit in that shift position for good voicing. And now that we've done violence to the hammer by needling it there, at this point, I want to make sure that the hammer hits all strings of the notes simultaneously. This is really huge in a really nice, beautiful tone, consistent up the scale and down. If you think about it, if the strings are uneven and the hammer hits one string before the others, you're not getting maximum tone out of that piano. And when the hammer does hit those other strings, it kind of glances it differently, which will excite those higher harmonics in the tone. And so the sound will be kind of seedier, broken apart, thin, a little bit more nebulous attack, not as clean of an attack, and a different strength in the tone overall. So we're going to see how mating the strings might change the overall tone of this piano and beautify it a little bit. I'll just show you briefly what I'm doing when I'm mating. I'll do most of the work off of camera because this is definitely one of the more tedious things. But if we're looking here, I'm going to take here now. So underneath, I'm raising what some people call the whip-in or the repetition. I'm raising that and I'm pushing it in a certain way so that I can block the hammer up against the string on purpose. Okay?
Sure.
Now, I'm not blocking it very hard. What I want to find out is at the minimum point when it very first starts to make contact with the string. So right now it's not making contact. I'm going to raise it a little bit. It's touching the right two strings, but not the left.
I see, okay.
The effect of that is that, this is one of those things that seems subtle when you're setting it, but after you've done it to a whole piano, you think this is worth it.
Significantly better.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and, now there's different ways to do this. I could file a little bit of the hammer in those locations.
Okay.
On the right side so that it hits a little bit later.
Sure.
Or I can pull up on the string. This being a new piano, I want to work on the strings.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident that the hammer line is really straight. So
Okay.
I'm going to match the string. Now this will knock the piano way out of tune.
Okay.
So it gets better before it gets worse here. So I've just got a hook. I'm just going to pull a little bit on that string, see what change we get. Now both the left and the right are singing because they're not being contacted in the middle. Is still.
I see.
Because I haven't raised that yet. Now I raised the right a little bit higher than the left, so I might have to raise that too.
And so far as string raising, I'd love to see kind of what that looks like here.
It's just I'm just holding that hook right here, right, and I'm just
pulling up.
I'm kind of massaging it up.
Okay.
Maybe I overdid it a little bit on that middle one, but that's fine. That's just that's why I said this is tedious. I'm just gonna massage it down a little bit. Now these right two, I get a similar sound. And then the left is just a little choke. So all I have to do is just raise the left a little bit.
I see.
Now I don't mind raising the strings because it makes a more defined termination there.
Okay.
And it'll improve things. So, I'm helping the tone in a lot of ways.
How temporary is that? Because I imagine banging on those strings super hard with a hammer, could that knock them back down? Or once it's consistent, it's going to just hit them all the same force and be pretty stable?
It's a little bit fleeting, but the second thing that you mentioned, which is if the piano's played a lot, the hammer's getting cut. So it's going to do some mating on its own just with play.
Sure.
So maybe one of the things people talk about when they say this piano's broken in, it's really nice, it's just real solid tone. That might be part of what's happening. So it's kind of mating itself. But I want this piano to sound good now.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait till the hammers need to be reshaped and have grooves, the size of the Panama Canal. I want it to be ready to go now.
Sure.
So I'm getting closer, right?
Right.
I'm just going to raise that left one just a little more. Overdid it. It's one of those things that's harder to do when you're talking. There, now they're all blocking. Now I could cheat and just push it really hard and they're all gonna block no matter what, but the thing that makes the most difference in the tone is setting it at that very first point.
Sure.
You might have a technician that knows this in principle, but in practice it's actually kind of hard to coordinate. Not pushing too hard and plucking, and so a common mistake is they'll push too hard to say, oh yeah, I made a hammer to the strings, but really you haven't reached the full potential of the sound on that piano.
So it has to be pretty delicate. Just the first touch is where you think most technicians make the mistake.
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
if they haven't done a lot of it or don't understand it. Now, this knocks it way out of tune. I do this a lot, so I can tell when I've done this that has a little bit more solid attack, but I'm gonna grab just my tuning hammer. I don't know, Josh, maybe this is a good time to talk about tuning hammers.
Yeah, sure. Tell us, as you're doing this, tell us what kind of tuning hammer this is.
This is a Fujian carbon fiber, and it's got an aluminum tube and housing there. I'll just open this up. You can get different lengths, different angles, and the tube is hollow.
Okay.
And you can get different attachments on the end. But essentially, this is a very, very lightweight, very, very stiff tuning hammer, which gives you a lot of control. And the short of it is it allows you to make very, very small incremental adjustments to the tuning pin with very little effort.
Sure.
Which is what you want in tuning in terms of control. Tuning technique and learning how to tune a piano, it takes about as long as, getting proficient at the piano, because that's the hardest part of it, not so much the hearing of the notes. But I'm going to go ahead and, what we've decided to do, maybe you could describe what we're going to do, Josh.
Absolutely. So as part of at the end of this series, we'll be giving away one of these hammers. And just so you know, this isn't just some cheap giveaway for like $50. Tell us how much this hammer is.
No, this is I think it's about $400-ish, $430 value on it. So.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we will link down below how to enter that giveaway throughout this video series. Subscribing to Hyrum's channel as he builds this. And then at the end, this is just such a wonderful thing to have as a pianist, even if you're not planning on tuning your piano. I noticed that when I knock something out of tune on my piano right during the middle of a tutorial, Hyrum and one other technician have showed me, or two other technicians have showed me techniques to just bring that unison back in. So if you have one note that's bothering you on your piano and you don't want to call your technician out to fix that, having a hammer that can actually do this. And another technician told me, he said, I cannot tune with a cheap hammer. Like, I have to have the nice hammer. Even as good as I am at doing this, I have to have that nice hammer. He's like, I couldn't do the same type of work. So it's a pretty big giveaway, and definitely targeting someone who wants to make small adjustments on their piano and just start to get into this. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I would say, or if you don't want to, it would be a great gift for that tuner that you really love, because this is a lifetime tool. It's very comfortable. The idea is for someone using it day in, day out.
Sure.
You're not going to injure yourself. Much like a fine instrument will help you. So I'm just going to.
That's a great idea.
I'm just going to tune these unisons in a little bit. Now, typically, I'm not going to retune every time I pull on the strings. I'm going to do the whole thing and then tune the whole piano.
Sure, makes sense.
But I wanted to see if you can tell any difference. We'll pick a note that doesn't have proper mating and one that does, and see if there's any noticeable difference. And this one might be hard to point out, but
Sure.
I know the end result of this piano you'll be pleased with, and this is a major factor in that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's pretty clean, I'd say.
Okay.
So let's see, maybe its neighbor has the same disease. It is not mated so well.
Okay.
Now, if you say, I don't notice any difference what you're talking about, but pay attention to the quality of the attack and the solidity of the sound and tone.
That one sounds those two are the ones you want me to play, right?
Yeah, but I realized I should make it a fair comparison between the unisons on that D as well,
Oh, okay, sure.
so that we're not drawing attention to the fact that the unisons are out. Because you all heard that the unisons were out, right?
That's the thing is, he's hypersensitive to this because he does it all day. That D didn't sound too bad to me.
It's always harder to tune when someone's watching, you know? I'm actually having a harder time tuning this unison because of that mating factor.
Oh, interesting.
I just realized that's
Yeah.
a big deal. When I made a piano really well, the tuning, the unisons just falls in place and they clean up really nicely.
Uh-huh.
So it affects when the strings are struck at different times and different level of force. That's one of the things that affects it. It's kind of like you get a cat meow that just kind of stays there. It doesn't go away.
I see.
So
Okay.
take a listen.
So. I mean, if you didn't point this out that, hey,
Yeah.
this one's not mated and this one is, then I probably would just say, the D sounds maybe just a tiny bit uglier, but we're really putting this under a microscope here. It's not like this D sounds horrendous and this E flat sounds amazing. The
Yeah.
E flat sounds great, but the D doesn't sound that bad. But to me, if I'm really listening for it, that might just be just a touch thinner sounding, maybe a little bit more brittle of a tone.
Yeah, a little hollow, brittle, yeah.
Yeah, very slight. We're talking, it's not like playing an old beat up upright that hasn't been tuned for 30 years.
Yeah, but when you set a whole scale that way, the piano just gives you just solid feedback. It's a better situation, and it's a lot easier to get a good tone, good tuning and everything.
Awesome.
And the way that sustain's gonna sound. So I'll get to work and do the rest of
Okay.
the mating on this.
Sounds great.